According to church records, the family did not contact the parish because they believed in possession. They called because their son had stopped sleeping and begun whispering prayers backward, perfectly, despite never having learned them. Witnesses later reported that the change was subtle at first. He became withdrawn. He flinched when touched. He complained of a pressure in his chest that moved when he lay down, as if something shifted position inside him. Doctors found nothing. Blood work was normal. Neurological scans showed no abnormalities. Anxiety was suggested, then insomnia, then stress. The fear came before anything supernatural. His mother described how he would sit at the kitchen table long after midnight, staring at his reflection in the dark window, breathing slowly, as if listening to instructions only he could hear. When asked what he was doing, he answered calmly that he was keeping count. The family priest was not contacted until the third week, after the house itself seemed to change. According to neighbors, the property grew unnaturally quiet. No birds landed in the yard. The dog refused to enter the boys' room, whining and pulling away from the door. The temperature in that hallway dropped several degrees, enough that condensation formed on the walls despite the heat being on. The attending priest stated that his first visit revealed nothing overtly spiritual. The boy was polite, lucid, embarrassed by the attention. He denied hallucinations, denied hearing voices, denied fear. But he avoided one room in the house, the storage room beneath the stairs, and would become visibly agitated if anyone approached it. The family insisted the room had always been unused. But when the priest asked to see it, the boy began to shake. His pulse spiked. He begged them not to open the door, not with screaming, but with controlled urgency, repeating the same phrase under his breath. "It's not finished yet." Medical explanations were exhausted quickly. Sedatives had no effect. Sleep deprivation worsened his condition. When he did sleep, he woke speaking in a low, monotone voice that did not match his own cadence or vocabulary. He described dreams of being buried standing upright, unable to move, with symbols carved into the soil around him. The turning point came when the mother finally entered the storage room alone. Behind old boxes, she discovered a shallow pit dug directly into the concrete floor. Inside were items wrapped carefully in cloth. Clumps of hair tied with black thread, a small clay figure pierced with rusted nails, and a strip of paper covered in angular symbols written in ash and oil. Beneath it all lay a photograph of her son, taken months earlier without his knowledge. The black magic was not symbolic. It was deliberate. According to later analysis, the symbols matched Tantric curse patterns intended to bind a living person to a location, using personal biological material to anchor the ritual. The pit itself was not decorative, it was a containment point. The mother recalled a former tenant who had lived in the house briefly, a man who practiced rituals late at night and left suddenly after a dispute. No one had sealed the pit. It had been covered and forgotten. After the discovery, the boy's condition escalated rapidly. Witnesses later reported sudden behavioral shifts that did not resemble illness. He stopped recognizing family members intermittently. He refused food but gained weight. He could not cross thresholds without assistance. When moved away from the house, his breathing became labored, his skin cold and gray, as if something was pulling him back. When the priest returned, he brought holy water and performed standard prayers. They failed. The boy laughed, not mockingly but knowingly. He recited the priest's words in perfect synchrony, half a second before they were spoken. According to church records, this was the moment the priest requested authorization for a formal investigation. The house was examined. The pit beneath the stairs was reopened. Soil samples revealed burial materials mixed with cemetery dirt from an unknown site. Wax residue suggested repeated candle rituals. A faint circular marking was found around the foundation of the house itself, drawn with powdered bone and salt, nearly invisible unless wet. The priest attempted a preliminary rite. It did not stop what followed. The symbols began appearing elsewhere in the house, carved shallowly into wood and drywall overnight. The boy developed aversion to religious objects only when the pit was disturbed. When the items were removed from the house, His condition worsened dramatically, as if the ritual had been interrupted but not broken. On the 5th night after the discovery, the boy was found standing in the storage room, barefoot in the pit, holding the clay figure to his chest. His voice, when he spoke, was no longer singular. According to witnesses present that night, the boy did not resist being pulled from the pit. He complied willingly, almost gently, but his eyes never blinked. The attending priest noted that his pupils remained dilated even under direct light, as if reacting to something deeper than physical stimulus. From that moment forward, the fear was no longer theoretical. The boy began referring to the house as the place where it listens. He described sensations of pressure increasing whenever prayers were spoken nearby, not pain, but resistance. He stated calmly that the ritual had been designed to open something, not invite it, that the mistake had been stopping halfway. Psychological explanations collapsed under the weight of consistency. He spoke of burial items he had never seen removed, naming objects still hidden beneath the concrete. When the floor was broken open days later, additional materials were found exactly where he described them. Bones from small animals, a rusted bell wrapped in skin, and a sealed glass jar containing liquid darkened by decay. The priest attempted another round of prayers. This time the boy screamed, not in agony, but in warning. He begged them to stop, insisting that each prayer tightened it. Church authorities approved a limited exorcism, not because possession was confirmed, but because the black magic involvement had escalated beyond containment. The ritual was scheduled to be performed inside the house, close to the pit, to sever the connection at its source. The first attempt failed almost immediately. As the priest began the rite, the temperature in the room dropped sharply. Candles bent sideways, flames stretching toward the pit beneath the stairs. The boy's body stiffened, his back arching unnaturally, yet his expression remained calm. He spoke clearly, stating that the ritual was incomplete because the witness was still bound. When asked what witness he meant, the walls began to vibrate. According to church records, this was the moment the priest realized the curse had not been designed solely for possession. It was layered. The ritual anchored something to the land, then used the boy as a living seal. Removing the objects without completing the counter-ritual had destabilized it. The black magic reacted. Scratches appeared on the priest's arms without contact. Symbols burned briefly into the floor and vanished. The boy began reciting names, none recognized by the family, but later matched to deceased individuals buried in a nearby abandoned cemetery. The rite was halted. Over the next days, the boy deteriorated physically. He lost strength, developed unexplained bruising, and complained of weight pressing down on him while standing. He could no longer enter the storage room, screaming if carried near it. Yet the pit showed signs of disturbance each morning, as if something had shifted beneath the concrete. The priest returned with assistance. This time, the ritual was not performed as an exorcism alone. It was a severance. The burial items were brought back, placed precisely as found, and surrounded by consecrated markings meant to counteract tantric binding symbols. The priest warned that if the ritual failed, the connection would finalize instead of break. As prayers began, the boy convulsed violently. His voice dropped into a register that strained the room itself. He accused those present of stealing time, of interrupting a promise made in blood and soil. Witnesses later stated that the most disturbing part was not the voice, but the certainty behind it. When holy water was poured into the pit, the sound that followed was not a scream, but a deep resonance, as if the house itself exhaled. The walls cracked, the lights shattered, the boy went limp. For several seconds there was silence. Then the bell buried beneath the floor rang once, low, distant, and directly below where the boy lay. According to the attending priest, that sound was not produced by vibration or collapse. The bell had no remaining clapper. It should not have been able to ring at all. Witnesses later reported that the boy began breathing again only after the sound faded. His pulse returned slowly, unevenly, as if restarting rather than continuing. When his eyes opened, they were unfocused, scanning the ceiling with confusion instead of recognition. The ritual did not end immediately. The priest continued the severance prayers, voice shaking but controlled, directing them not at the boy, but at the pit itself. Holy symbols were pressed into the broken concrete. The burial items were sealed in blessed cloth and removed one by one. Each removal caused a reaction: cold drafts, sudden pressure in the ears, the sensation of being watched from behind. When the final item was lifted, the boy screamed once, sharply, then fell silent. According to church records, this was interpreted as the moment the binding collapsed. The house did not return to normal. In the days that followed, the boy recovered physically. He slept for nearly 20 hours uninterrupted. He no longer whispered. He no longer avoided mirrors. Medical examinations showed improvement, though no explanation was given for the rapid change. But psychological effects lingered. He refused to enter the house alone. He insisted on sleeping with lights on. He described dreams of standing above the pit, looking down into darkness that extended far deeper than the foundation should allow. In those dreams, he said, something was still counting. The property was examined again before the family moved out. The pit had been filled and sealed with reinforced concrete. The markings around the foundation were erased. The burial items were removed to church custody and reportedly destroyed. Yet neighbors continued to notice changes. Animals avoided the area. Soil above the pit never dried completely. Grass refused to grow in a perfect circle beneath the stairs. At night, faint sounds were heard inside the empty house. Slow, deliberate taps, spaced evenly, as if marking time. The priest visited once more weeks later. He did not perform prayers. He stood in the storage room for several minutes in silence, then left without comment. According to his private notes, later archived, he wrote only that the ritual had been interrupted, not reversed. That the black magic had been designed to endure absence. The family never returned. Years later, when renovation crews attempted to remove the concrete beneath the stairs, their tools jammed repeatedly, as if striking metal that was not there. One worker claimed to hear a bell beneath the floor, ringing once, then stopping. According to church records, no further exorcisms were authorized at that location. The house remains sealed, and the count was never confirmed to have ended. According to later municipal reports, the house was officially classified as uninhabitable due to structural instability. No further explanation was given, but the order came unusually fast, bypassing standard inspection timelines. Witnesses later reported that workers sent to secure the property refused to stay inside after sunset. One described a sensation of pressure behind the eyes the moment he stepped into the storage room, accompanied by the certainty that he was standing somewhere he was not supposed to be. Another claimed the floor beneath the stairs felt warm, despite the rest of the house being cold. The attending priest did not return again. Privately, he warned diocesan officials that further intervention could worsen the situation. According to his statement, the black magic involved was not designed to possess permanently, but to establish access. The boy had not been the final objective. He had been the entry point. Psychological records from the family later noted that the boy, now relocated and stable, retained no memory of the ritual itself. However, he demonstrated a persistent fear of enclosed spaces and refused to enter basements or underground structures. When asked why, he stated only that places like that remember people. Years passed. The house remained empty. Neighbors claimed the windows occasionally fogged from the inside on cold nights. No power was connected. No one was living there. Yet condensation formed in slow, deliberate patterns, as if breath were pressed against the glass. One evening, a local teenager entered the property on a dare. He ran out less than a minute later, pale and shaking, insisting the floor beneath the stairs was humming. He said the sound was not loud, but steady, rhythmic, and that it stopped the moment he crossed the threshold back outside. No further trespassing incidents were reported. According to church records, the location was quietly added to a restricted list, sites where no blessings would be performed without direct authorization. The notes emphasized that interference had previously caused escalation. The black magic, as described in the final assessment, had not been dismantled. It had been deprived of its conduit. What remained was dormant, but not empty. In the final line of the priest's archived notes, written years after the incident, he added a clarification. The ritual was never meant to end with possession. Possession was a symptom. The true danger was continuity. Something had been taught to wait, and the house was still keeping count. According to later testimony from neighbors, even after the house stood empty for years, strange phenomena persisted. Shadows moved against walls when no one was present. Faint, deliberate taps echoed from the storage room at night. One resident claimed that a reflection in a window showed a figure standing beneath the stairs, motionless, though the room was empty. Witnesses later noted that animals would not approach the property. Cats hissed from yards away. Dogs refused to enter the driveway. Even birds avoided the trees nearest the house. The area surrounding the storage room developed an unnatural stillness, described as a pressure in the air, by anyone who ventured too close. Church correspondence suggests the boy's condition was never fully understood. The priests involved noted in private letters that severing the black magic may have prevented immediate danger, but it had not removed the underlying force. The pit, the buried items, and the symbols had been disturbed, but the ritual's intent, its design, persisted in subtle, invisible ways. According to church records, the final assessment labeled the property as a semi-active ritual site, one where the magic no longer required a living host but remained anchored to the land itself. It was marked for observation only, with explicit warnings against future disturbance. The boy, now adult, reports persistent anxiety when near old, sealed spaces. He describes dreams of counting again, the sound slow, metallic, deliberate, as if something beneath the earth continues its task. He cannot enter rooms with ritualistic markers without physical distress. According to investigators, the most chilling detail was that the black magic had not been a one-time event. The deliberate placement of objects, the repeated layering of symbols, and the pit itself suggested a plan designed to endure interruption, to persist long after the participants left or the living host was removed. Even today, the house remains intact, sealed, and uninhabited. Contractors who attempt repairs speak of tools jamming inexplicably, of lights flickering in patterns that mimic the counting the boy once heard. And beneath the stairs, the pit lies buried, but the sound of a bell, faint and deliberate, has been reported by more than one witness, echoing in the silence of an empty house. The records end there. What remains is the unsettling knowledge that the black magic, though disrupted, was never truly defeated. The count continues. According to a priest who later reviewed the files, the most disturbing part was not what was done, but what was planned. The black magic had been structured in layers, each item, each symbol, each burial act serving a purpose beyond immediate possession. The ritual was designed to outlast those who interfered. It had contingency built in. Witnesses later described unusual phenomena near the property even years after the boy had moved away. Trees directly above the pit twisted unnaturally. Soil that had been disturbed remained damp regardless of rainfall. One passerby reported a faint, metallic ringing, like a small bell, emanating from beneath the stairs when the wind shifted. Another claimed a shadow moved inside the window, standing unervingly still, as if observing. The attending priest's notes indicate that any attempt to forcibly remove the items or alter the symbols resulted in subtle retaliation. Candles would bend, flames stretching toward the pit. Temperatures dropped sharply. The boy himself reacted when even distant locations connected to the ritual were mentioned, describing pressure in his chest or feeling pulled toward the house. According to church correspondence, they concluded that the binding was anchored not solely to the boy, but to the location itself. The pit beneath the stairs was the keystone, and the ritual's architecture ensured its endurance. Removal or interference only triggered reactions, escalating the phenomena rather than containing it. The boy, now grown, describes vivid dreams where he stands over the pit. He hears slow, deliberate tapping, counting in a rhythm that never ends. He wakes sweating, feeling the pressure return briefly to his chest, a reminder of what had been anchored to him and the house. According to later reports, any attempts at conventional exorcism or blessing failed to disrupt the underlying structure. Only the carefully performed severance ritual alleviated the immediate danger, but the design itself, the ritual's foundation, persists. The house remains abandoned, sealed, and marked in church records as a semi-active ritual site. Contractors, investigators, and neighbors report subtle disturbances. Shadows shifting in empty rooms, inexplicable drafts, faint sounds of counting, and the occasional metallic ping of the buried bell. And beneath the stairs, according to those who have dared to check, the pit remains, hidden under concrete, silently continuing its task. The count has never stopped.